Hi, I'm Bob Sambol, and this is our rare conversation with Ray Washburne. You know, Ray, this probably should be two interviews. Ray Washburne, the real estate developer, and Ray Washburne, the restaurateur. So we're going to have to delve into a little bit of both. So one of the first questions I always ask people is, in sixth grade career day, when little Ray Washburne raised his hand, what did you say you want to be?
Well, I was mowing lawns at the time in sixth grade, so I'd probably say I'd want to be a landscaper because I love mowing lawns and I loved my landscaping business that I had
You
back
got
then.
paid cash then, too.
Well, I got paid cash, but what was really fun about it is you'd go to a house, and I had 10 or 12 homes in our neighborhood. Kids don't do that anymore, by
Yeah.
the way, but it was great satisfaction to go cut the grass and trim the edges, and that's back when you had a little weed eater thing going along. And then after about an hour, you did it, you got paid, but you walked away and you could look at something that you actually did yourself with your own hands. So I felt a great sense of accomplishment by doing that.
Okay, so you went on very successfully from cutting lawns.
Yeah.
Went to high school and you went to SMU.
Yep.
And at SMU, what'd you major in?
I was a history and English major.
Okay, all right, we're still getting lost here. So when you
And
got,
I didn't take any business classes at all.
and so what did you want to be when you graduated? A teacher?
No, I wanted liberal arts education. Look, I paid my way through college. I had a carpet business. I installed carpet. I had a vending machine business. And I realized I had been in business. I also had newspaper routes, all stuff growing up. And I really wanted to have my father went to Williams. My mother went to Cornell. So I grew up in a very, East Coast kind of, and my siblings were all, none were business majors. I was the fifth of six kids. They were all liberal arts people. And so I really wanted, and you can see around our office here, all the art and things here. I just wanted a wider view of the world than just a myopic, just business view of it. So I didn't take any business classes, and I worked every day. I got my real estate license when I was a freshman in college. And so I was working in business. I didn't want to go study that. I wanted to understand the world.
Okay, so you got your real estate license, and what was the moment where you said, you know what, I can do this. I can be successful at this real estate thing.
Well, first of all,
what was the deal? What was what was that moment where you said?
well, I never lacked for confidence to begin with.
You still don't.
I still don't. And so, to be an entrepreneur and go into business, you have to deal with risk and you have to have confidence in yourself. And so, I think that's one reason I was probably a liberal arts major. I had enough confidence in myself, understanding business. I didn't need someone to teach me that because I understood it well. And so, I went to work for a guy named Don Tobin, who owned the shopping center by where La Madeline is in front of SMU on Mockingbird. And I lived in the SAE fraternity house, and I managed that and leased it, living in the SAE house.
Wow.
I was 20 years old. And so I'd walk over in the mornings, I'd pick up all the trash. This is why I think owning luxury shopping centers really fits my background. Landscaping, I guess. And then, but I'd walk over in the mornings at 6 o'clock. This is after a hard night of partying or going out and stuff. I had to go over there, be sure all the trash was picked up, the lights were on, working. And then I had leasing signs up. People would call. I had a phone mate answering machine in my fraternity house, and people would call, and I did the leases. I did the La Madeline deal. Container Store, that was their second store. I don't know if you remember, Container Store used to be over there. There's an old Tom Thumb we replaced. There's a Jay's Cafeteria, and I replaced almost every one of those tenants when I was in college.
What year was that?
That was 1980 to 83,
Man,
right in there.
before my
And
time.
then there used to be a Howard Johnson's on the corner, which became a Capital Bank drive-through, that old Bank One drive-through that's long gone. And so there's a Hojo on the corner. Then we did the La Madeline. It was very first La Madeline, Patrick's very first La Madeline. So
Wow.
that's kind of my first inkling of real estate, was doing a lease with restaurant.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you went on from there, and you stay with Tobin, or you went to
No,
another
I
company?
went to work for a guy named Joe Foster Company, leasing office space my junior year in college. And I was knocking on doors, wearing that shoes, door to door. I mean, that's like cold calling, door to door. So I was learning that. But I wasn't making any money because the market was kind of slow. So I went to work for a home builder in Highland Park doing construction. So I learned,
Wow.
now the pieces start coming together. I knew landscaping. I learned property management for cleaning stuff up. And then I worked for a year for this home builder, being kind of his general lackey or whatever. I'd go in the mornings before I'd go to Joe Foster, and as they were pouring concrete, so I learned how foundations were poured, how buildings were put together, and so I got a construction background. This is all like going to school as well. So,
So you're graduated SMU. You're
yes.
working for these different companies, and so what was when you look back? I always look back at certain milestones in my career where, boy, that was a big jump. I went from that to that. What was the big jump?
Well, I was an Eagle Scout in Boy Scouts, and so I used to help out the scout troop. And my senior year in college, between my senior year that I graduated, or junior and senior year, I went on a backpacking trip in Colorado with the Boy Scout troop from Highland Park Presbyterian. And there was a guy on the trip whose son was on it, named Bill Solomon. And Bill's family owned Austin Industries, a big contractor.
Yeah.
So I got to know him on that backpacking trip because I was kind of, I was in college and these kids are all like teenagers, and I was kind of the leader between the dads. There are like 10 dads and 30 boys, and the boys and kind of. And he goes, you're showing great leadership skills. And I got to really know him every night around the campfire. So we got back, and about 2 months later, he called me up and said, would you like to have breakfast? I'm like, this is the chairman CEO.
Right.
He's chairman of the Dallas Citizen Scouts on the chamber. I mean, at the time, in the early 80s, he was one of the most powerful guys in town. So he went, and he said, why don't you come work for me? And I was like, really? Well, Austin Industries was a bridge builder, built DFW Airport, the Bank of America Tower downtown, a huge contractor. He said, our people here at the company are all engineer types. They're A&M, very engineering. He goes, we need, and was a 100-year-old company. They needed young thinking in there, kind of thinking out of the box. And he goes, you think out of the box, all these different entrepreneurial stuff. We need to inject the. So I went up there, went to work directly for the CFO. I mean, that was kind of a big jump up. Yeah. So all my friends are just kind of getting started in jobs, and here I am in the C-suite with the chairman. And so I went around trying to help them reinvent the business in the sense of doing real estate development, real estate investment, and those things. I was 23 years old. And so I'd go in the meetings, and I was by far the youngest person in all these meetings. But, it was just that guy kind of gave me a leap. So I did that from, call it 1984-ish until the RTC disaster and, late 80s. And there, every real estate company came to their knees, including Austin Industries, because all our, business kind of went away. But what I found from that experience, and this with Entrepreneurial came out, the people we had done work for were all going bankrupt, and they all owed the contractors money. But the thing I noticed was the interesting thing is we had a paving division that did all these subdivisions in Plano and the different cities where they would go put the streets and utilities in, but they went in so quick, by the time you send them the bill, the concrete's already on the ground or the sewers. And then they'd say, well, the S&L went broke or the bank went broke. So the company was stuck with thousands of lots in the banks. And I went to him, I said, we need to buy, I can buy this stuff for 10 cents on the dollar from the government, the RTC. He was like, look, we got enough problem. We got to deal with our contracting business. So I went, and the only person in town that had any money, oil guys are broke, bankers are broke, real estate guys are broke. Everyone's terrified, was my roommate who made fruitcakes, Bob McNutt from Corsicana. And his dad, they made fruitcakes, sold them. And I was like, we're the only guys that still got cash, And so he backed me, and I went to banks and was buying subdivisions for like $200,000, $100, these multi-million-dollar deals. And so I bought, used fruitcake money, and when no one else had any cash, and bought a bunch of lots, and that's what really was my big hit that got me going.
Yeah.
And I was 27, 28 years old, but I had a very old 29, 30-year-old partner who they, and the interesting thing in the fruitcake season, they had a lot of cash in the spring because they would sell that stuff in the fall. And then they had to start buying nuts and stuff in the summertime. So there's a gap when they were pretty cash heavy, and that's when I bought all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I got to meet Bob's dad, and he was quite a character.
LW.
And at one time, I heard they were the largest customer of Federal Express.
Is that right?
At one time, yeah, with fruitcake business.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's fast forward a little bit and get to what did you see about Highland Park Village that said, I got to own that?
Well, the Highland Park Village is one of these things that's kind of like the Dallas Cowboys. You never think about owning it because who's ever going to sell it? And so the family that owned it, the Henry S. Miller family, bought it in 1976 for $5 million. And as a kid, I'd come up here and spent a lot of time here. And then we opened Mi Cocina here in February of 93. And it had a good run. But what I had realized at the time, I didn't think I could own it just because this family, is a legendary real estate family in Dallas. Why would they sell it? Well, old man Miller was getting old. They had 18 family members living out of it, because Henry had 4 kids. They each had kids and grandkids. So all of a sudden, it's like a lot of generational investments. More and more people are feeding out of it, so they weren't reinvesting in the center. So when it came time to buy flower pots, let's say you had to spend $50,000, were you doing that or making a distribution? Who do you think won that out?
Yeah, right.
And so really, they needed to be reinvesting millions of dollars back into it, like any business, but they weren't. And so I was noticing, like at Mi Cocina, when we did our original lease there, they didn't give any TI dollars because that's taken away from a distribution. So the rents were really low. And I realized the rents were, we pay percentage rent, were way low compared to the market, but most tenants wanted tenant finish dollars or they would go somewhere else. So one night I was at Mi Cocina with my wife, Heather, in December of '08. Now, the global financial crisis is right in the heart of the storm. The whole, global financial system is breaking down. Real estate is, and the Millers, I didn't realize, had been trying to sell the village and had contracted it the summer before, the summer of '08, to a guy out of New York who had just spent the whole fall kind of retrading him. I didn't know that, but we're up here seeing the Christmas tree lights on like a Tuesday night in December, and one of the waiters came over and he goes, El Jefe, he called me El Jefe, he goes, these men over here are talking about buying the Highland Park Village. I said, there's no way the Miller would ever say. And just then, as the hand of God would have it, Henry Miller walks by the table with a Mi Cocina to-go bag with the famous stripes on the side, and he stopped to say hello. And I said, Henry, I hear you're selling the village. And he looked shocked, white as a sheet, and said, what are you talking about? And I go, no, I'm hearing they're thinking about buying the village. Someone's buying the village. And he goes, I can't talk about anything. Picked up his bag. He goes, call me tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Walks out the door. So of course, I don't sleep all night.
Yeah.
Next day, I can't stay up. So anyway, the next day, I call him at 5 o'clock. And he goes, how quick can you get over to my office? And at the time, he was officing above Mi Cocina in West Village. Rush over there, and he said it had under contract, it fell out of contract at 5 o'clock. That's why he could talk. We sat down, and the thing in real estate, if you cannot figure a deal out in the back of an envelope, it's not a deal. I don't care what kind of computer programs they give you. You can really basically figure out if it's a deal in about 2 minutes, if you know what you're talking about. So we sat down, and across the table, we made a deal. And I walked out, shook his hand, walked out, wow. and that was that.
Well, it's the prototype for every high-end center in America now. Everybody uses it as the example of what you can do with a piece of property, in spite of malls are dead and shopping centers are dead and people are only buy online. You defy all the rules. You get these high-end stores to pay high rent because it's worth it. I mean, when they say rent's astronomical at Highland Park Village, high rent because it's worth it. So they want to be here and they want to do business. So when you have a product like that, and you must get to a point where you say to yourself, wow, what else can we do? Wow. I mean, business is good. I got new flower pots. I made the Christmas lights even better. I've got every cool, current, high-end designer store here. What's next for Highland Park Village?
Well, first of all, you'll never be finished.
Yeah.
People always ask, when are you going to be done? Never.
Never.
Right now, we're taking a movie theater and Maze is going to move into that location.
That's
we're
a
redoing
big
right
spot.
Now. Yeah, it's a big spot. It'd be probably their biggest store in the United States. Maybe Madison Avenue is larger, but you've got to look around. We're 250,000 feet. Okay, so the square footage hasn't changed, really since we bought it. So, where do you go? Where do you go gold mining? Well, if you look at Bistro 31 and Mi Cocina Monkey Bar, that was an alley. Okay, We put a cap on that alley and created those spaces out of nothing. So Bistro, for example, was a Robert Talbot tie shop doing $1.3 million a year in sales. Place it with Bistro, the lounge, he'll do over $12 million out of it. This is his value creation. The office building where Starbucks used to be, where you have Park House. Well, Park House, the radio station KVIL, that was started in Highland Park. VIL stands for Village. So
Wow.
KVIL was on top of that building, and that was their broadcast studio. It was about 8,000 feet or so, and they had a gravel roof that kind of stuck out on top. You know, it's just like a little penthouse thing. So we did the deal. Brady Wood on Park House became incredibly successful. So we took that from paying us $18 a foot for 5,000 feet, 6,000 feet. So call that $100,000 a year. So Brady's operation up there with percentage rent and all, we make over $1 million a year. So, I mean, that's these are the movie theater was losing. We ran the theater, so we were losing a few $100,000 a year keeping it. Well, with their maze in there, I mean, that thing will throw off millions a year in rent. So that's taking the same square footage and just rethinking it. So we're Tom Thumb. That was paying me $20 a foot.
Yeah.
And we took that from doing probably $10 million in sales to the boutiques we replace it with will probably do, $200 million in sales right there. So you got to look at those things. So where do we go? It's continuing to, I've got to keep the neighborhood feel. That's the thing people say when they come here. It's like with Dino's,
Mm-hmm.
The local restaurant scene. I don't want the national restaurant scene here. With, things like Leela Rose and the smaller local tenants, Myron Crosby, the boot people. I mean, they do well. You've got to have those things to kind of balance it out. And the beauty of being here is we're a dictatorship. Snyder Plaza is a democracy. Democracies don't work.
No, they don't.
And because over there, there's not the only national retailer in Snyder Plaza. The only national retailer is CVS. Everything else is mom and pop. Just think about it. Every single tenant in there is a mom and pop. It's a knitting shop. It's this or that. And so it's the exact same demographics. Why? I control the environment. I can merchandise it. I don't put in the vape shop or the tattoo parlor or things like that. And so the high-end retailers trust us because they know Maze knows I'm going to put a Chanel next door to them. They're not going to show up one day and I put in some, poor tenant. Snyder Plaza, you don't know who's going in next door to you. Okay? Look at Preston Center. The east side, which the Caruth Trust owns, is where Cafe R&D and all that is. That's a controlled environment. They own all of it, and they merchandise that. Go directly across the street, Preston Center West, it's nail salons and branch banks and personal trainers. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah.
Why don't they have any good retailers? It's across the street because retailers don't trust it, meaning they don't know. And so that's why this works is we're able to merchandise like I'm a conductor, conducting an orchestra. I have to have all the parts playing. The local retailers, the local restaurants. I mean, when we tell people we own the Highland Park Village and you're somewhere else, pretty much the first thing everyone says is, I love Cafe Pacific. Been there since 1980. Mm-hmm. It's a traditional thing. And they remember that kind of thing. And if I'd put in a national, you and I talk all the time about these New York restaurants and stuff coming in. Mm-hmm. So what? You go to those same restaurants in Vegas or all over the place, but there's one Cafe Pacific.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Well, I think when people ask me about Highland Park Village and how's that place so successful, and here's my opinion. My opinion is when you come here and you get out of your car and you start to walk around, you feel successful. Mm-hmm. I'm shopping at Highland Park Village. Mm-hmm. That's right. And you almost feel like you got a little, your tendency is to spend more money because of the environment. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful, the landscaping, the type of stores. So when people get out of the car, they get inspired because, hey, I'm shopping at Highland Park Village. I'm going to go buy myself a jacket. Well, then when I get it home, I say, I paid what for that jacket?
Well, so we've owned the Village now 16 years.
Yeah.
It took us probably 8 to 9 years to become an overnight success. And what I mean by that is the first few years, bricking the parking lots, bringing the trees in, redoing the park house, doing all these things, it didn't happen year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. it collectively happened over time. So if we were a public company that owned this, there's no way, we took no money out of this for the first 10 years. Everything went back into it. Okay. So if you're a publicly traded company, or if we have no partners, it's just our family. If you'd had any partners, they'd be like screaming for distributions and things like that. We're owning this for our kids, our grandkids, for subsequent generations. And since our kids are so young when we bought it, there was no demand for distributions income coming out. So I have these public REIT guys that show up, these publicly company, and they look at the brick park and they go, you spent $10 million bricking a parking lot? How can you quantify a return on that? I go, that's why you're not the right owner. Because those little things, the details we put in, the woodwork when you walk around here that used to just be painted brown. I hired a guy from Santa Fe that came in and hand painted all the little wood trimmings that go around on the timbers around here, replacing all the stop signs or beautiful stop signs, putting in fountains and the flowers.
Christmas lights.
The Christmas lights. All that adds up over time. And now you look 16 years later, you go, and our rents are excess of $600 a foot now. If I went to Snyder Plaza, I could lease all the space I wanted for $50, for 10% of that.
Yeah. Well.
And so.
All right. Well, we got that now. Now we have to go on to the restaurant business.
Sure.
So when you talk to Ray Washburne at the restaurant business, you automatically think of Mi Cocina, but you just acquired Razzouz. You're on the board of Red Lobster. One thing we didn't go into about real estate is you also now Country Club Plaza in Kansas City, which you own that, and I'm sure you're going to turn that around as soon as you can, for sure.
Well, again, that's going to be, and I tell people in Kansas City, that's going to be 8 years to become an overnight success there as well. So they expect things like the first month, it's like, guys, first thing I want to do is just clean the windows and take the trash out of the parking garages. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
And then but they see it up there. They see additional security.
Right.
They see, the funny thing in Kansas City, as a sidebar real quick, is we went up there, the security were guys wearing the construction, the day-glow vest walking around, like they look like they could really do anything. I put cops in uniform with guns, and I had them wearing cowboy hats.
That's great.
Because people are scared of Rip on Yellowstone, so I had them all dressed up like Rip, walking around, and our crime just went down.
That's great. You see? All right, so let's get on to the restaurant business. We got to start with Mi Cocina. How many years ago, and how did that get, how'd you end up in the Mexican food business?
Because I was young and naive. The best way to get in any business.
Yeah.
I knew no better. If I did, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But no, I got approached in 1990 by Michael Rodriguez, whose family owned Mia's on Lemon, and I was a customer there.
Next door to Bob's.
Yeah, next door to Bob's. And so, was it Bob's then, or was that in 90?
No, it was Del Frisco's then. But yeah, I came in 93.
Yeah, and so I was a customer there in the 80s, and Michael was the guy at the front, kind of the waiter. His dad was in the kitchen. His mom was kind of the maitre d', but it was only 10 tables. It was a very small place. And one day he called me up and said, hey, this is Michael. Can we go to lunch with me? And I was like, I didn't recognize, I kind of recognized the voice. I go, who? He goes, Michael Rodriguez. I go, and who are you? And this is a guy I would see all the time. Yeah. He goes, the waiter from Mia's. I was like, what the hell are you calling me for? Yeah. I wasn't expecting a waiter to call me. And so, and it was really loud. And I said, well, where are you? There used to be a mobile station at the corner of Lomo Alto and Lemon, where Whole Foods is now. Remember that little mobile?
Right, yeah.
He goes, I'm at the phone booth at the mobile station. My mom fired me, and I walked down the street, and I'm so upset that, because remember, Mia's at that time was next to the fish store, next to the Pizza Hut.
That was before my time, yeah. Okay,
it was way down that little strip center down there. And he said, I'm looking for a partner. And I said, okay, well, let's go to lunch. So we go to the China buffet at Stemmons and Motor Street, because it was an all-you-can-eat. He goes, I'll take you to lunch. It was $2.95 all you can eat. China. I'm like, a real generous guy. And so anyway, he takes me to lunch. And so we go to lunch at the China buffet. And I said, well, I was like 29 at the time. And I said, but I was going to a lot of the debutante parties and stuff. So back then they would always put pictures in the paper. He goes, well, I know you've been really nice, but I go, well, why do you think I got enough money to put in one of these things? He goes, well, you're in the paper all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at these debutante parties. I go, well, that doesn't mean I have any money. I mean, but he goes, I go, well, how much does it cost to open a restaurant? He said, $25,000. I go, to open a restaurant? He said, yeah. I go, all right, well, I'll take that risk.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes, but I need a location. So I get in my car. I had a Saab convertible. And I put my girlfriend at the time, and we just started driving around looking for a spot. And I just drove up Preston Road, and I came to Preston Forest. Well, originally I went all the way out to Beltline and called on a spot that the RTC had just foreclosed on. Remember, this is our savings and loans were shutting down everything. I was starting to buy subdivisions, so I was starting to have a little bit of money. Go to Preston Forest. That shopping center where Mi Cocina is today was empty. It was just a shell. And I knew the guy on the leasing sign. I called him up. He said, look, the bank just took it back. They have no money for TI. I go, how much is rent? He said, $12 a foot. And I said, well, can you give me 6 months free rent? And he said, sure. They're looking for anyone to fog a mirror. So we signed up. My TI package was $10 a foot. And we leased 1,000 feet. I think I got 10 grand, put up my 25,000. Of course, you know, we get a building permit and sweep the space out, and we're out of 25 grand. So I called Bob McNutt, my fruitcake buddy, and I said, I need another 25,000. So he puts up 25 grand. So now we got 50 in it. Then all of a sudden we run out of that. I'm like, oh gosh, I go, this is stupid. So I called my brother up, said, don't ask any questions. So we split it, a third, a third, a third. We each put up 20. We opened it for $77,000.
Wow.
Can you believe that? That restaurant's still in business today and is an $8 million a year unit. And it's been there, 35 years? And we've expanded it several times and around. And the day we opened, we had a line out the door because that was a food desert back then. There were no restaurants out there, nothing. And a lot of people. And it just opened up. Now, so we ran that from 91 to about 92. My sister-in-law is at the old bookstore they had here in the village, and they had a petition on the counter. It's because there's a Mexican restaurant here called Los Vaqueros. It had been here for years, where Mi Cocina is today. And the Millers were kicking them out. So they want everyone to sign the petition to keep Los Vaqueros. So she called me up, and I said, we need that location for Mi Cocina. Of course, you know, we are doing about probably $2 million a year in sales then, or man, like so. But again, the economy was in total dumps. At this point, you know, we're just starting to come out of it. The Dallas economy. So I call Henry Miller, who I knew, who later I bought the village from, and said, you know, would you, what's going on with that space? He goes, well, we're taking bids for it. We don't have any TI money. Remember I told you they weren't giving any tenant finish. So I went down, looked at it, and then I made kind of a pitch. I brought Michael down, and the Miller said, well, we want to taste your food. So Henry and Juanita Miller used to drive around in a Rolls Royce. Yeah. And you probably came to Bob's in that. And they used to be a big Mia's customer. So one day they said, we're going to come out to lunch. So they came out to lunch out at our Preston Forest store, which is still very, very small. While they were there, I sent down to their corporate office trays of food, Mexican food. So she gets out there, and Juanita liked our Mambo taxis. And at lunch, she had herself a few, and so did old man Miller. And they're like in the late 80s at this point. I'm sure that Rolls Royce was going down Preston Road, back and forth. So they came back, and they just loved the meal. And when they got back to their office, everyone at their office was like raving about our food because they got to eat too. So they picked us to take it. Well, then it's like, what do we do now? We built that first restaurant for $600,000. I look at numbers today to build a restaurant, and it just blows my mind.
Mm-hmm. I know
how much they cost to build today. But we opened that. It's about a third of the space it is today. We've expanded out and up and everything else. And once we did that, we were off to the races. But Miko, in his genius, took the original Mi Cocina out north was a typical Mexican restaurant. Big plastic tumblers, paper napkins, you know, kind of the vinyl tablecloths and stuff like that. He said, look, we're in the Highland Park Village. We have to be elegant. Mm-hmm. So he bought nice china, nice silverware, cloth napkins. So now we're serving enchiladas on china. No one had ever done that in Dallas before. Everything else was like plastic plates. And then on Sundays, we had a harpist, you know, playing the harp, if you can believe that, up there. And so we elevated the whole experience up. People didn't know what to take of it at first. And then it just kind of got going. And Highland Park Village is still kind of I went to SMU for 4 years, never stepped foot at Highland Park Village. There's no reason to come over here. There's one women's store called Harold's that all the SMU girls would shop at,
Right.
but there weren't any. I wasn't going to Cafe Pacific. That was a much older demographic. And so once we got that, I had every landlord begging us to take space. And that's when we just took off to the races. So, and you asked how I got into it. I was able to use my real estate expertise with Miko's expertise in operations and design. And then my brother and McNutt love the food part of it. So they help Coach Miko along on the culinary side, from food quality side. And then, anyway, it just kind of took off from there. But I tell young restaurant people, I go, you can't have debt. If you take debt on the restaurants, it's a killer. So I was able to get landlords to give us a lot of money. And then we just started cash flowing back into the restaurants. As soon as you start taking on debt and the economy slows, or you have one or two bad restaurants, that's a death nail for restaurants.
What about the restaurant business that you say, wow, I never thought about that, and now I'm in the business, and it's just, that's the really hard part of it. What's the hardest part of the restaurant business in your mind?
Well, there are two parts of restaurant business. There's the restaurant business,
And then the business
and
of the
the
restaurant.
business of restaurants.
Yeah.
And I'm in the business of restaurants. The restaurant business. So I guess it's. Are you talking about like coming up with a new concept or taking your current one and moving it
you
along?
look at Mi Cocina, and I know you're always trying to make it better. You're obsessed
Yeah.
with trying to make it better,
Yeah.
and I've watched you incredibly improve the management. In other words, Edgar is the best one you've ever had.
He's a phenomenal.
I mean, he's it. Okay, when he talks, I listen. Okay, because I'm going to learn something. Yeah. And so you've taken that, because that came from your real estate background. You got to get the right guy managing the property.
Well,
and so you got the right guy. But also, the restaurant business is so fickle. I mean, there's a zillion Mexican restaurants in Dallas, and Mi Cocina is the one everybody knows about.
Well, this might be a little aside to that, but there's something to say about scale. Okay, and I think this is true in so many parts of business right now.
Right.
It's either you're big or you're small. You have two restaurants, right?
I'm in charge. I run two restaurants.
You run two.
But now I'm back. They've asked me to come back and assist with overseeing the brand.
Okay.
So now I've got to put my other hat on,
right,
and say, with 15 Bobs, what do I need to do to make 15 Bobs do this right?
But so the two that you own and operate, you're there every day, you understand it and all that stuff.
Right.
But you can't have 15 Bobs.
No.
I mean, persona. It's like when Wild About Harry's. When Harry was at Wild About Harry's ran great. When
Right.
he opened like 4 or 5 of them, the thing failed.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't be there. So you can't get too associated with the brand because they expect you to be there, right?
Yeah, they do.
And so, but if you can get scale, the advantage we have now with so many restaurants, and now with Razzoos and Mi Cocina combined now, I mean, we're up to, 50 plus restaurants or something. You can have the scale of a CEO, a CFO, a CIO, a maintenance department, all that stuff, a big corporate staff that can make stuff happen. Mm-hmm. So there's a death valley in the restaurants between, call it 2 to 4. It's revenue more than anything else. It's probably, once you get up to about 20, 25 million of revenue, you have to take that leap to the next. And a lot of people hire as their CFO their cousin's sister-in-law who just had a baby, who used to work at Deloitte and can only put in 5 hours a week. And so you hire her to do the bookkeeping, and that's kind of what you get, right? And things start falling through, and your sales tax audits, you got to have the scale to afford that. But you have to have someone doing that. And I'm a partner in the Katie Trail Ice House. Buddy and I had this discussion because he's got downtown in Plano in Banditos. So his CFO is a guy, great guy, but it's kind of that guy, and they have a couple contractors. If Buddy ever wanted to scale the Ice House to the next level, I mean, he and I have had this discussion a lot. He's going to have to hire overhead, which all of a sudden your G&A explodes on you. Mm-hmm. And so when I talk to people about their concepts, it's like, You either got to, once you go past that 3 or 4 units, you better speed it ahead to 10 to 15 because all the in-between is going to eat you alive, or just stay where you are.
Right.
Because if you don't stay where you are, if you went from 2 Bobs to all of a sudden 5, then you're like, well, my POS system is down at unit 4, and I got to call that guy in for a 24-hour call. I really need a full-time. I mean, anyway, that's so what have I learned? That's what I've learned more is from the business side. Now, from the restaurant side, the business of restaurant and the restaurant business is our training is so incredible at our headquarters. We bring people in, and Edgar does a great job. We train. If you go to Mi Cocina and you ask a waiter, how long have you worked here? 20 years, 25 years, 10 years. It's amazing. We have very low turnover because we train them. We pay as well as anybody in the business. We have a great benefits program. We have a lot of things around that, and we treat them with respect. And there's no glass ceiling for someone to go to a dishwasher, to a waiter, to a manager, to an area director.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key. That's the other thing with scale. Your people can continually work up the system. And so that's the restaurant business. The business of restaurants is what I was telling you of, like the whole back of the house side.
Right. So that's why you acquired Razzoos, because you figured they can fit right in.
Well,
and
the Razzoos is a classic example of a legendary concept in Dallas. It's been around for 35 years. Mike Leatherwood started it, who also had Bone Daddies, had Spring Creek Barbecue, I think. Was that his deal too? And he grew it, had about 15 very profitable locations, brings in a private equity group, and they think, we're going to grow it to 30 locations. So the key to selling a concept is you have to get about 25 locations. You have to prove it in about 3 or 4 different markets, meaning out of your home comfort level. Okay. And so they took it, built 10 locations. They went to North Carolina and to Arkansas and some other places trying to prove it. All of them failed. Okay. So in like 2 or 3 years, they took on all this debt. Okay. Debt's bad. Expansion's not always good. And they finally, but to feed that scale, they had to what? Hire up a G&A. So the G&A started sucking cash out of it because they had to have the CFO and all the things I just talked about. So if you're going to rush to that, you need to go slowly, or I said if you're going to go fast, do it in an intelligent way. Instead, they were just throwing darts at a map. So it goes into bankruptcy. I bought the debt from the bank at a big discount. We closed, I think it was 10 or 12 of them. We have the 12 or 13 legacy ones that are the profitable ones. But they had cut the quality of the food way back, the training and things. What we were amazed at is the stores we kept were all immaculate condition. Whoever was running their
because they made money,
the facilities.
And the manager just didn't say, I can't afford to do that.
Yeah. So they are in immaculate condition. So all we have to do is we brought the training, and they're amazed at our training. And then the food quality, we've gotten our chefs in there and that looked at it going, it's so funny. The food quality, as you know, it's like a ship going from New York to London. If it goes off 1 degree, you're in Portugal, right? 1 degree.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You start slipping food quality, you have that same thing happen to you. One thing the pandemic taught us is we took our menu at Mi Cocina. I think we cut 20 or 25% of the items away, which helped us bring our quality of the stuff we remained higher because we got rid of the chefs in the kitchen. It wasn't as confusing or chaotic because people are amazed when I tell them, when you look at a menu and you think, oh, that shrimp dish, we've got 27 Mi Cocinas. You go, well, how many of those we sell a day? You're like, 1 a day per store. I'm like, what? How can that be? And so some items, you sell 1 or 2 a day. We're like, get rid of them and focus down. And if you look at some of these massive menus at like Cheesecake Factory, they might go weeks without even selling one of those items. But when they do, the whole kitchen has to shut down and the chef's got to go find that deal. Like we had a salmon dish we got rid of because it just slowed the whole process of moving the food to the kitchen.
Yeah. All right, last restaurant question. I can sit here all day and talk to you. I love talking to you. You're on the board of Red Lobster, the classic. I love Red Lobster. I think it's great. Obviously, how many units?
Well, Red Lobster had about 12 or 1,300 before it went into bankruptcy. They shut 500 down going into bankruptcy. So I think there's 600, 650 left.
I love how they blame the all-you-can-eat shrimp for its demise, but it was failing way before that.
Well, look, any legacy brand, the only one that has really resurrected itself is Chili's, and they did a phenomenal job on that. But when you get a nosedive, I mean, we'll see what happens with Red Lobster. I mean, Bennigan's Steak and Ale. I mean, some of them, there's no guarantee these things last forever. I mean, there are a lot of challenges with how do you position that, because their best stores are in kind of suburban, urban areas, and like the Wichita, Kansas or something, or up in the Northeast. And then other spots, they actually do best in areas near the sea. You would think it'd do better in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
But, and they have some great locations, but they're also challenged with, a lot of stuff. And how do you position it in the eyes of the consumer?
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
Yeah.
That's the biggest issue with the brand.
Yeah.
And
it's confusing. It's hard work, and I don't. When you and I have talked about it, I don't see how they're ever going to get out of the mess.
I am an advisory director. I'm not an investor in it. I was, and the other advisory directors were like, old guy from Church's Fried Chicken, another guy from Dart. I mean, it's really interesting meeting people from some of these other, businesses, just trying to figure out how do you do it. And the other issue is Red Lobster is part of Darden. It was the original. Bill Darden, that was his original concept. I don't know how these portfolios, companies that run, Norman Brinker wanted Brinker to be a mutual fund of restaurants. Remember at one time they had Maggiano's, Chili's, Corner Bakery, they had On the Border. Did I say On the Border yet? On the Border, Grady's. Remember all these concepts.
Macaroni Grill.
Figured you'd fit in each one of them. But what happened was the brand started to cross, pollinate. It's like, well, that margarita sells great On the Border. Well, why the hell don't we just sell it at the other ones? Well, what makes it different, in things? And what I think they found with Chili's, if you go to a Chili's, it has something on the menu to satisfy every person. Mm-hmm. If you want Mexican food, well, they got quesadillas and fajitas. Well, that's enough for the guy wanting Mexican. I want a hamburger. Well, they got two or three hamburgers. Too, yeah. Okay. So if you look at their menu, it's very well constructed to where it can go into middle America. And basically, if you're in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, and you're trying to figure out where to go, and you want Mexican, I want hamburger, and somebody else wants some pasta, it has just enough so you don't need multiple brands. You can service it all out of one.
Yeah. Well, listen, you're a fascinating guy. That's why when I'm watching CNBC, you pop on to talk about the restaurant business and the shopping center development business. In Dallas, you're considered a tough businessman who's been incredibly successful. But I know you as a very compassionate guy who, when I wasn't doing well in my life, did some incredible nice things for me and my family, and I'll forever be grateful for that. Again, I love talking with you. I love hearing what you have to say. You have a great perspective, and for taking the time today to do this, I really appreciate it.
Sure. All right. Thank you for having me.